Hey guys, I just finished episode 106 of the Gray Area podcast with Jason Woolford, a gentleman that is running to be the state representative for the 48th district right here in our community, Livingston County. He was born in Howell. He's a veteran, served in the Marine Corps, and he talks about his calling. He speaks about why he feels that he needs to step up and be a leader in today's society. So I hope you enjoy. Stay tuned. All right, another podcast from the Michigan Institute of Athletics in Brighton, Michigan. It's going to be a great podcast today. Right before I get into it, I want to shout out VetLife. VetLife is a 501c3 nonprofit company. It's a company of veterans for veterans. Every veteran faces difficulties when they transition from active duty back to civilian life, and VetLife is there to ease that transition. If you want to reach out to VetLife, you can do so through Instagram or Facebook, or check out their website at vetlifetoday.org. So without further ado, I want to introduce the guest that I have here today. Jason, I don't want to mispronounce your last name, and I didn't ask you initially, so I'm going to let you introduce yourself and give like a real basic synopsis of who you are. But then the way that I start all of my podcast episode is I don't want to know about who you are today yet. I want to go back to who were you as a child? Where were you born and raised? What was the family dynamic like? And, the influential things in your life. And then we will build up to your story today and what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, I'm Jason Woolford. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me. And I guess a little bit about what makes me up is what you asked is from a young guy to the Marine Corps, from the Marine Corps to the business world, and then called to overseeing a global nonprofit, and then also running for state office now.
So I'm excited, man. That's a story where it has several points where you had to obviously go through serious character development, growth, and lessons to become the man that you are today. So let's take it all the way back. Where were you born and raised? What were you like as a kid? Were sports a big part of your life? Just anything about your family dynamic that you'd like to tell.
Yeah, so as a young guy, I played sports and then worked real hard and didn't know, as we'll talk about this in a little bit, but didn't know too much about God. So I either made people laugh or I beat them up, right? Like that was my thing, a very passionate person, kind person, but never looked for trouble as a young guy, but it sure seemed to find me.
So you didn't grow up in a really religious home. You found religion later in life.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I enlisted in the Marine Corps, after being in the Marine Corps, I met these two guys, as we say in the Marine Corps, light green and dark green, because there's no white or black in the military, in the Marine Corps. But these two dark greens, but for the sake of the story, two black guys who were men of men, Marines of Marines, went out of their way to tell me about Jesus, right? And I was like, man, I'm good. I believe God's real, and all this. But I saw something in them that was different, right? They were men of men, Marines of Marines, but there was something that they had, a joy that I didn't see in a lot of other people. And so they invited me to an all-black church in Oceanside, California, and I heard the preacher say, hey, man, this is how you get saved. You ask Jesus into your life, and all the things that you messed up on, he'll forget about and bury him into the deepest of deep seas. And I said, man, that sounds like a plan.
So basically, it wasn't even the words that they were using. It was the energy that those people had that resonated with you, and it really connected with you. And you're like, man, like these guys have kind of got something together, or they have something that I'm missing, and I'm seeking that type of thing. And it led you on a brand new path. What made you go into the military initially? Did you have military lineage in your family, or like why was that the direction after high school? And before that, did you think you were going to go to the military route? What did you think you were going to grow up and be before you chose that path?
Yeah, so I didn't have necessarily the greatest childhood. And so for me, looking at the military when they would come into the school, I liked the Marine Corps dress blues. There was a certain way about them. They were different than the other branches. But I was thinking about the Air Force because my grandfather was in the Air Force, and then my grandfather on the other side was in the Army, both of them during World War II. And it just so happened that I chose the Marine Corps, which is a good thing because, as we'll talk about, my wife was in the Marine Corps, and that's how we met. Through the Marine Corps.
Wow. That's a cool origin story of the marriage. And how long have you guys been together? You've been together since the military when you were teenagers?
Oh, yeah. So we met in the Marine Corps at 19 years old, and we've been married now 29 years.
Man, that is awesome to hear in a society where divorce rate is probably like 50% and people just give up on each other really quickly. It speaks to your character to some degree. And I'm sure there's rockiness in that story of 29 years, but you're still by each other's side. Mm-hmm. You're still working to stay together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that rockiness. And that rockiness portion of it is, when we were young married couple, we had a lot going for us. We got out of the military, got involved in the business world. We were making a lot of money. Things were good. And then we moved back to Michigan because this is where I was born and raised in Howell. And we basically went through hell. Our youngest daughter was we were told from our youngest daughter in the womb at 7 months that she was going to be born deformed and with Down syndrome. And then our 7-year-old son, they found a cancerous inoperable tumor in the middle of his brain. And then our oldest daughter, they said she'd have lupus, which is a lifelong disease that you can't ever get rid of. And so, when you look at people that are married, you look at the divorce statistics, and then you look at people that are in the Marine Corps, and then you look at Marines that are married to each other, and then you look at these trials and tribulations they've gone through. I think the last time that we checked, it was like we had a 0.0157% chance to stay together. But we were able to do that because we're both Christians, believers in the Lord, and we put God first in our life, and that's what helped bring us through these things. And by the way, each one of our kids, sometimes, bad things happen to good people, right? And sometimes it works out the way you expect, and sometimes it works out differently. But I want you to know in this particular case, we prayed, and believed God for a miracle. And our son's tumor at the time that was twice the size of a golf ball in the middle of his brain, 2 months later, it vanished out of the middle of his brain. He went from dying, being a Make-A-Wish recipient, to now being 26 years old and being a seminary student. Our daughter with lupus walked out of the hospital lupus-free 5 days later. And our youngest daughter, who just earned the title United States Marine 3.5 years ago, was the daughter that we were counseled to kill in the womb because she was going to be born deformed and have all these problems. And she was born healthy, of course. So those are some of the things that we went through as a family that were those fiery trials.
Absolutely. And how could you not be strengthened if you survived trials and tribulations like that? How could you not find inner strength that you didn't know you had? I can't imagine the nights where you guys had conversations about whether you end that pregnancy and things those are incredibly devastating things because you're having all this outside influence, but it goes directly against who you are and what you believe. So, that is an incredibly dark world to have to exist in. And you find yourself in the dark a lot of the times. Mm-hmm. Most of the people I know that really have themselves together in this life have gone through extreme darkness, and that's why they have themselves together. So you said you first came out of the military and you guys had business together and you were successful. What was that business? And then why did you guys come back to Michigan? Obviously, you were born and raised here, and it's great to hear that you're from Howell, knowing what you're doing today, which we'll get to. Mm-hmm. But, what business were you in? What brings you back to Michigan?
Yeah, so when I got out of the Marine Corps, I started in the marble and granite business. So we imported and exported marble and granite. So we did a lot of hotels in Vegas and a lot of work around a lot of celebrity homes in Southern California. And then my wife was the vice president for human resources at a construction company. And so as a young couple coming out of the Marine Corps, we had a lot going on that was good. And, I just got to this point in my life where, California seemed to be enough. And man, that was all the way, that was like 21 years ago. So you can imagine, I thought enough was enough then. And I wanted to raise our children in a more family oriented traditional way, and so we decided to come back here. Which, by the way, my wife wasn't in agreement with. We pray about everything, and I told her basically I said, pack your trash. We're going to Michigan, and I sold it better than that. But that was the underlining, theme of it, and I can tell those that are listening it doesn't end well when you do that, right? So since then, I've made decisions while I'm the head of the house, right, that we're both in agreement in those things. But nevertheless, we came back to Michigan, and then we started a business that we were hoping to franchise, and then that's when our kids came under, as I would say, under attack. And I had decided during that time that I wanted to go to Bible college as well. Just so I could learn a little bit more about what the Word says, right? And so anyway, that's what brought us back to Michigan. And then just now 12 years ago, I was working my way back up into corporate America, and I felt like there was something more that I wanted to do, and I didn't know what it was. I knew it was probably ministry related. I always joke and say, I have the giftings to be a pastor, because a pastor is very administrative and very evangelistic, right? And but where I'm not good is I sometimes want to choke people out, and I'm sure you can appreciate that for what you do. And so for me, a very good fit would be to be at a place that would be like a missions organization, and the great thing is God brought that to pass.
So one of the things I want to talk about, and first of all, I like that you're looking ahead. I can already hear from your story, like you were seeing the trajectory of where they were going in California, even back then, and going like, you know what, this is not the environment my family's going to be around. This is not the influence that are going to be on my children. This is not the, safe haven that I've promised these little beings. You know what I mean? We need to get out of here. So I like that you have that forward thinking and that the ability to see trajectory. You alluded to very lightly that you had some darkness in your childhood, and I usually find that people that did have struggles when they were young are way better suited to deal with struggles when they're older. And because it sounds like, man, you're crushing a lot of trials and tribulations that would have annihilated people, that would have broken them to being victims for the rest of their lives. Because you could sit here today and tell me all the victimized parts of your story and how things weren't fair and this shouldn't have happened to you. Right. You don't have any of that energy, none of it. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to find the correlation there. Do you think there were struggles from the childhood that built you into the man that you were? Do you think the military was a large part of building it? Do you think it was a combination? Just speak on that for a moment.
Yeah, I definitely think it was a combination. When you look at, I was a young boy, 7 years old, and my biological father left, and he never came back, right? And so when you look at, that type of stuff in life, it was very easy. People tell me that I'm a great dad, right? That I'm lovey, huggy, I'm there for my kids, all of those things. But I am that because I got to see how I didn't want to be. And when I was in California, I listened to a song by Billy Ray Cyrus, which is crazy, man. I haven't thought about this until right now for a long time. But he sings a song called Busy Man. And the song talks about, there's a little boy in the driveway, his basketball's in hand, and then the dad says, "Can't you see I'm a busy man?" And I was getting to that point in my life in California, and I was like, man, I don't want to be that. And so we left and came back. So I think having the struggles of knowing how you don't want to be are a blessing. A lot of times, like you said, people live in the past. They want to say, boo-hoo, me, what a rough life. But for me, I love it because I was able to see what I could be, what I wanted to be, just like my son. He has a scar on his head that goes from the side all the way to the back, and he's got wounds on his body. And I told him, I said, son, that those are war scars. Those are scars of showing that you kicked the devil's stinking rear end by the blood of Christ, of course, but you won. You went through a battle. You know what it is. And for us as a family, the things that we've went through, I tell them it's a blessing because we know how to live like other people don't know how to live. We love like other people don't know how to love because we've been through some very traumatic things in our life. And then, of course, the Marine Corps did make a very big difference in my life. I loved it. It was about organization and being squared away and dress blues and, patriot stuff. And just it was good. So both of those things, I think, help shape me.
No, it makes sense. I mean, when you go through terrible experiences, or even if you have things that are beyond your control or not fair, like a father not being in the home, it does lay a foundation for what not to be later in life. Mm-hmm. You not having your father around made you say, you know what, I'm going to be a father. I'm telling you that right now because I know what it's like to be the boy without the father. Right. I'm going to be a father. I'm going to make sure that my son knows that he's loved, that he knows that he's supported. So even when you go through darkness, people need to remember, like, there's a blueprint in that. It's giving you the ingredients for being better than that. Yeah. As long as you don't become a victim and hateful and angry and resentful, because all those emotions will just make you a lesser version of who you should be. And I don't hear any of that in your story. I hear, I'm going to do better. So I'm already stoked as we're leading up to what you're doing today because I'm starting to understand the man that sits across from me. Mm-hmm. And I love that when you're talking about your son, like, as you were telling me that part about that scar, in my mind I was thinking, like, be proud of that scar, man.
Right.
That's the number one thing that you should stand tall and being like, I'm proud of this scar. This is me. This is winning the battle over evil, over something that was out of my control. That is like, I belong here on this earth. You know what I mean? So and the way you said it exactly the same. You said, you should be proud of that. That's a battle scar. That shows that you're a warrior. You know what I mean? And the last thing I want to touch on before we move forward in your story is you referenced the fact that, like, when you said, but I feel like I want to strangle people from time to time. We actually, to be leaders, we have to be capable of strength. We do have to sometimes put our foot down vehemently. We have to oppose things that are not good for our families and ourselves and our society. And we've lost that recently. Recently, people have been so afraid to stand in the spotlight or to have, the mics put in front of them, or, the mob turn at them, or cancel culture, or whatever it is, that they are not being authentic for who they are and what they feel, and they are yielding to this pressure. We need leaders that refuse. I like a leader that has a little bit of a fire and says, no, you're not pushing me around.
Yeah.
I'm not going to push you around even though I could. I'm not going to be violent to you because I know it's not right. It's not that I don't have the capacity to. I don't do it because of morality. But I will not back down to madness or tyranny, et cetera. So I'm super excited as we get to, the listeners don't know what you're doing today, but that's the type of man that I would support 100%. Yeah. So what I want to talk about a little bit before we get to the current times is you come back to Michigan. You said it was a struggle. Go into the struggle a little bit beyond the health issues that you're dealing with your kids. What does life look like? And then what's the moment that starts to get it all back on track? Like, was there a light switch moment? Was there an opportunity that came? Was there initiative that you or your wife took? Like, how does it start to getting back on track? And then let's talk a little bit about, the nonprofit that you're a part of, and then we'll get to today's story.
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, we went from being poor Marines to, making a lot of money in California, to then coming back to Michigan to franchise a business from the ground up. And then just as I had started that is when I also felt like I was supposed to go to Bible college, which was hilarious because, I was sitting in Bible college and I was looking at 98% of the people in there, and I was like, man, I don't think I belong here. And then, unfortunately, I look back and I think, well, me and the other 2%ers were the people that should have been there, and 98 of them shouldn't have been there. So just a side note, people that are listening shouldn't give up on things. If you don't fit in somewhere, you might be the actual one that's supposed to be there, not the others. But
I'm telling you, I'd rather have people that don't fit in as politicians nowadays than people that fit in, because the stereotypes and the norm is not what I'm looking for. Okay, I want the 2%.
Yeah. And so for us, with the struggles that we were going through at that time, we went from making tons of money to not making any, being a Bible college student, to our kids being attacked. And, I had graduated and I thought, well, I'll be a pastor. And I just didn't feel like that was for me. And so I started working my way back up into corporate America. And about 13 years ago, we had gotten to the point where, all of the things that we had went through we were now beginning to reaccumulate wealth in our life. And those are a good thing, by the way, right? The Word of God says, given it shall be given, pressed down, shaken together. In other words, you live and give and honor God. You're gonna prosper. You're gonna do good in life, spiritually, physically, financially. My point is this, though. We had went through such a difficult time. And so I had gotten back into corporate America, started reaccumulating wealth, and then I felt like the Lord put on my heart to just leave and trust Him for a full-time missions, full-time position in ministry, of which, by the way, I didn't really want to do, but I knew I had to. So we took a year off and just trusted God that this was going to be a thing that He was going to provide. And we went through some very hard times financially. And the craziest thing is I could have went back to California. I could have went back and did anything that I was doing in the past, but I just felt like I couldn't do it. And all of this leads up to Mission Cry, which is the missions organization that I oversee. And if we wouldn't have stepped out in faith, if we wouldn't have went through those trials and those struggles, it wouldn't have had us in the position to be where I am now. And that's a missions organization where we've given away $400 million in free Bibles and Christian books to 178 nations around the world.
Yeah, that's amazing. So that's impact. That's making a difference. That's filling other people's cup, which then in turn fills your cup. When you said the words, I could have gone back, yeah, you could, as a shell, empty,
Right.
without passion or emotion, in a zombie autopilot state, hating your life. Once you decide that it's not for you, you can only do it in this like, oh my God, it's monotonous, it's routine. I'm not serving my purpose. And that feeling is devastating. I witness people with it all the time. You can see people that are not living something that, that they value. So when you say I could have gone back, good thing you didn't.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's better to struggle and actually find meaning in the struggle, or find character, find life lessons in the struggle, than to avoid the struggle. You know, like, yeah, you could have put money in your bank account, but like, what about when your heart's empty? What about when your head is empty?
Yeah.
It's not worth that trade-off. So you're running this mission now. At this point, your life is probably going better again because you're serving a purpose. You see the difference you're making. Your wife is probably very supportive of this. It's getting you by financially. Like, everything is lining up. What in the world makes you want to go into what you're doing today, right? Like, because that's a big jump, because you kind of got it laid out, man. You're doing well. You're back on track. The family is healthy. Like, why take on this new endeavor that is going to be a rough road?
Yeah, for sure. When I look at, where we're at, and you alluded to this, is that, we're not called to mountaintop experiences. We're called to the valley, right? And occasionally we get these times in our life where we get to have a mountaintop experience, right? For me personally, that mountaintop experience is in the presence of God. But the thing is, people always want to stay there. And he's saying, look, you're down here. You're supposed to go down in the valley and fight. This is where you're to be, right? Every once in a while, you get to come back. Every once in a while, you get to get recharged, but your fight is down there. And so for us, when I see the country, when I see, as I've traveled the world globally, and I see those that are believers around the world, but they don't have the same freedoms that we do, and I see our freedoms I'd like to say they're being stolen, but unfortunately the last 2 years I've seen people give their freedoms away. And so when I see the lack of leadership, when I see Americans not being fully, I want to remind them that I'm going to defend their freedoms, but I'm also going to remind them of the freedoms they have and how to fight for them. And that's why I'm moving into this next phase.
And the fight is worth it. That's what you just started that with, and that's what I feel 1,000%. The fight is worth it. The life in the comfort zone, as things are slowly taken from you and as life slowly degrades in quality and things get lower and lower caliber and there's more and more misery and suffering, and the trajectory of the future is not one that's healthy, especially like the psychological trajectory that I've been witnessing. We need the leaders to stand up. We need the leaders to get off the mountaintop where it's beautiful, the wind's blowing on your face, the sun's shining. You're saying, but I don't like it as much down there. There's hard work down there. I don't know if I'm going to trip and fall down there. I don't know if there's a wolf in the bush down there.
Yeah.
You got to go anyway.
Yeah, and you know what, I like that, because as you gave me a tour of your gym, the Scorpion here, I was thinking about these fighters that you train. And a friend of mine said, a lot of times, like in my life, they say they see the glory but they don't know the story, right? People see somebody wearing the dress blues, but they don't know the hell that they went through to earn that. Someone sees somebody in the octagon and how awesome is that, but they don't see all of the stuff that went before that. And so in those areas of our life, we need these things, this difficulties that we go through to get us to those occasional mountaintop experiences.
100%. And we all value like hero-like figures. We all value the strong man that overcame incredible obstacle, that is an embodiment of resiliency and character, who does the right thing despite the fact that he's been hurt, despite that people have taken advantage of him or life hasn't dealt him a perfect hand of cards. He still lives in an honorable way and tries to change the world. We all admire that. But for some reason, only a fraction of a percent of people really chase becoming that, because it is hard. In a society where temptation is at every corner, you can make a bad decision at a split second. You don't have to have commitment to almost anything you do. It's so easy to be mediocre. You can complain about everything. You're actually rewarded for complaining about everything, because everyone jumps on your pity train and says, oh, it's all right. Like, this happened to you, so you are a victim. There are these mean oppressors. We need need to start doing the opposite. We need to start doing the work, going the fight, walking down the hill and being like, together, this is actually how we pull people back up. This is how we pull society back up. This is how we, make things the way that they were supposed to be. I bought into the American dream when I was little, and it sounds like you did too.
Oh, yeah.
I believed in our freedoms fully. I believed in the Constitution. I believed in the way that the laws of the land were written, and I thought that others felt that same way. And I've witnessed over time, like the current generation, I joke around with my fighters every once in a while, and I'll be like, hey, name the first 8 amendments. 5% of them can do it, if that. Most of them can't even name 3.
Well, because we've become a generation that is, we're walking in a, I always say we're walking in the fruits and the fight from the people that have gone before us. And, when things go easy, it's hard. What would they just say about Conor McGregor? It's hard to be a lion when you're wearing a Versace silk robe, right? Like I might have messed it up a little bit, but the idea is that it's hard to be a warrior when things are going so easy, and we forget about it. Like people think around the world that everyone is like us in America. It's not this way. In Nigeria and China and Myanmar, places that we're sending the word of God, these people are being literally set on fire and killed because they believe in Christ, right? So, like, we've had it so good, so long here that we've forgotten, and we've gotten soft, right? Matter of fact, even in my life, maybe I've been sitting behind the desk, and our friend who's joining us in the studio that people can't see, I shook his wife's hand a couple months ago, and she said, "Oh, you have the softest man hands I've ever seen." I said, "Man, you don't say that too, guys."
That's awesome.
I say that just in funny to say a lot of times we get soft and we don't realize it. And so we embrace those hard times. Me personally, as it relates to the word, God says, so as a man or a woman think of themselves in their heart, so are they, right? So you better have a good opinion of yourself because no one else will.
100%. And it almost reflects back to the quote, what you're speaking on is that like hard times create strong men.
Yep.
Strong men create good times.
Yeah.
Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times.
Yeah.
So it like completes the circle. I feel like we're currently in the stage of good times were created, and now you have a society that is suffering from an anxiety epidemic. They're struggling with drugs. They're struggling with opiates. They're struggling with all kind of, suicide. Well, there isn't as much struggle as we want to pretend there is. I've been to Africa.
Right.
I've been to China many times. I've been all over the world. I saw me and Josh Parisian, the guy that's in the UFC now, he fought in Africa. We flew over there. And there was a man like dying on the side of the road from no water.
Right.
He was the most stick figure looking person I've seen, like foam at the edge of his mouth. And he was like trying to speak to us to just ask for water, not money, not...
Right.
We walked all the way back to the hotel because we're fighters. They'll give us whatever we need. We're like, hey, we need a case of water for our room. They gave us a case of water. We walked it back to the man. So when I see the struggles that so many people are preaching about, saying they're like, oh, you don't understand the struggles that I go through and what I have to deal with. I'm remembering that guy on the side of the road of Africa dying in the street, baking in the sun that just was asking for water. And the way that the people live in China, I've been there 4 times. The one time we were at like this unbelievable resort on the ocean in a town called Sanya, and we didn't really see this struggle because we were given the like full, superstar experience. Right. But 3 of the other times we were in rural China, and the people live in conditions that I didn't know were real. I didn't know that people lived in these conditions. So a lot of the times our perception of how hard things really are is only because our mind has not been stretched to what real struggle is.
Well, yeah, because we live in as I call it, a little H heaven in America, right? I mean, pretty much our poorest of poor people still are the wealthiest around the world. And so people don't understand those things, and they have to see them. I wish so many people would go and take a trip like you did, have kids go take a missions trip so they'd come back and they'd understand what it is to be an American, be a patriot, to be thankful for the things they have. And quite honestly, that's one of the reasons that in addition to being the president of Mission Cry, I'm also running for Michigan State Representative for those reasons, because I've seen people forget. And I want to make sure that while they are starting to be reminded that we have good people to defend and fight for our freedoms, our Constitution, all of those things. You know, for me personally, I see a government in America that's out of control. We have chaos all around us. You know, you and I were talking about it before the program, how, you know, the last 2 years, you know, the people are pushing things. And first, let me say this. You know, I wore a uniform just like a lot of people, and I wore that uniform, and it gives people the right to have freedoms to do what they want in this country, good, bad, or indifferent. But when you start pushing your ideology and your things on people, like forcing people to take a shot, forcing somebody to close their business, forcing somebody to wear a mask, this is America. You know, we have freedom, and this isn't right. And so many people fell in line with that, and so and I didn't hear very many leaders standing up when it was rough until the people got pissed, and then they said, oh, you know what, now we got to fight, we got to stand, we got to do this. I was doing that 2 years ago in the midst of all this. Our guests could tell you I never put a mask on. I flew twice on Delta with no mask, and I didn't do that to be a problematic person. I did it because it was a personal conviction to me, because of the freedoms, because of people that have died, have sacrificed, who are disabled veterans, you know, like friends of ours here, and for me, I was like, man, I gotta fight for these freedoms and these rights, and so now I'm running for Michigan State Representative, and hope to make a difference there.
And there's an incredibly weird thing going on right now where the side that is pushing these restrictions of freedoms and all this seizure of power and this, you know, frankly, I'm going to just call it propaganda because, right. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it, but they hide behind the guise of we're doing this because we care about people. We're doing this because we're better people. The reason that gentleman wasn't doing it is because he's a bad person. Mm-hmm. He doesn't care about the constituents in his area. He doesn't care about, you know, friends or strangers. That's why he was doing that. Where that is not the case at all. But it creates this really weird, you know, situation where you're almost having to prove that you're a good person first. Then right. You can go to bat for your liberties and your freedoms and all the things that we're supposed to have in this nation. You know what I mean? So it was almost like a brilliant plot. Imagine just hide behind the guise of you're doing it because you care about people.
Right.
That's ridiculous. And if you went back to like 2015 and you tried to explain.
Where are those people? That's my question to you. All the people that cared for everyone who apparently were still in this pandemic, all the people that did this, that said, I'm doing it for you, I did it because I care for you. Would you stop caring? I don't see you wearing the mask anymore. I don't see you doing these things anymore. To your point, you know, just like the word says, you know, we're sheep and we follow. And this is why we need good leaders leading us so that people don't follow after the wrong way.
100%. And there's been a mass awakening. There's so many people now that they push the fear and the propaganda and the extremes so far that even the most blind, like, just trying to be a good citizen, like, oh, I'm just going to do what I'm told. Like, if an executive order comes out that says jump off a bridge, like, I'm going to have to jump. Like, even the most extreme cases, at least I can speak anecdotally from my community, they're like, nah, things were so beyond even being close to rational that, like, now I think there's going to be a major rebound effect. And I think people are going to seek out and search for strong leaders. Yep. They're going to seek out people that are willing to authentically speak the truth versus say what they think wants to be said to gain a position.
Yeah, and you know, I just want to say this, and I want people to listen very, very carefully here, so this is not taken the wrong way. But we were in Cracker Barrel, and let me preface the story to this. My wife is Mexican, okay?
So she's got some fire in her.
She's got some fire in
Fuego.
her, right? She's a fuego, muy fuego, yeah. So, but my point is, and then my youngest daughter is married, and she has her husband's half black. So my point is this: the people that are listening right now, remember that story when what I'm about to say. So we're in Cracker Barrel, and I see this family walk in, and for the sake of description, I'll say black, African American, whatever, as we'd say in the Marine Corps, dark green. Okay, and then they all have masks on. This is just a couple weeks ago, and then they sit down and they have mask on, and they lift the mask off to eat, then they put it back on. And when I saw this, I went over to them and I said, excuse me. I said, I want to tell you a story real quick. And I said, you see my family over there? I said, my wife's Mexican, my granddaughter's 25% black. I said, I just want you to know where I'm coming from when I say what I'm going to say. I said, I want to remind you that first, anybody at this table, you're not black and I'm not white. you're dark brown and I'm piggy pink. Okay, it's having fun because I don't like that narrative of the black and the white. It's very divisive, and people have bought into it. And the Marine Corps was smart in that for dark green, light green, whatever. But my point is, I told them, I said, listen, do you find it ironic that the very people that are telling you to wear this mask are the same people who go into your inner cities and slaughter the babies of black and Hispanics? Those are the same people telling you they care about you and to wear that mask. And so I don't mean to be political, but at the same time, right is right and wrong is wrong. And you said earlier, you sniffed things out, and it looked like this thing we were going through had more holes than Swiss cheese, right? And so I just want those that are listening, brown, piggy pink, whatever they want to say color-wise, across social races, financial, means. We need to pay attention to our freedoms and what's being taken from us, what we're allowing to be taken, and then also the agenda that's being pushed on us, because it's just so many times not the fact.
One of the things that I'm going to speak to your point, is people need to realize you are not your labels.
Yep.
If you are white or black, or that is a pigmentation of your skin. If you are rich or poor, that is a status that you live in. If you are religious or non-religious, that is a belief system. You are first a human being. Right. And the only real fight that exists is good versus evil, right? There's good human beings trying to move the trajectory of things in the right direction of all creeds, colors, social statuses, everything. And there are evil human beings or bad human beings trying to drive things in the opposite direction. And what people need to realize is the unity of bringing people together and just laying it out to the simplicity of there is no black and white. There is no rich and poor. That's not the fight. Those things exist, but that's not the fight. The fight is good versus evil, period.
And you know what happened after that conversation? They took their mask off and they said, my God, I never thought about it that way. And I said, walk in freedom. And they said, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And I say that to say that's a very difficult thing to do, say those difficult times. But like at the end of something, people that are leaders a lot of times, and they're leading right, it's because they truly at the bottom of their soul care about seeing people living the fullness of their life.
100%. The last thing I'm going to speak to on this is the idea that you got to remember that the people that were obedient, it doesn't mean that they're bad people or that they're stupid. The amount of fear and propaganda that was absolutely unloaded onto society. When I see those people that are alone in their own car, wearing a mask and they're terrified, don't judge that person as like they're an idiot, they're this. They are terrified. They're afraid. They genuinely believe their life is on the line if they're not doing that. So we need to remember that if you're going to try to unite people and we're going to try to bring people up, we have to give love and compassion for that terrified individual and show them a better way.
And I love that you said that too, because that's so important to talk about, is that, whatever it is, whatever somebody's going through, whatever spirit of fear, whatever attacks they're under, right? If you want to wear a mask because you like it, that's different. But if I think you're wearing this because you have a spirit of fear, you've been fear-mongered, people have bullied you into thinking that you want it. And I'm just using the mask as an example. There's multiple things in life that goes into. But so thanks for talking about that, because that's important, right? Like the end of the nucleus, the core of it is caring about that people and seeing them hurting and getting them set free. And so that's why I'm running for Michigan State Rep for the 48th District. And the 48th District goes from Howell all the way down into Ann Arbor and over to Jackson. And this is a very important seat, It's one of 5 seats that could flip the House the wrong way. And so for those that are listening that didn't like all their freedoms being stolen over the last 2 years, Republicans had the power of the House. And can you imagine if we lost that and the governor still was in there, imagine how much more of our freedom she could take. And so those that are listening have to get out and vote August 2nd in the primary.
Yeah, I think you're going to see people come out in droves. I think you're going to see an army of people come out. I think that rubber band effect that I've talked about, I think you're going to see so many people that are going to take a stand and they're going to say, never again, and we're going to find the right people to lead us into a better future, into controlling that trajectory. Because fear cripples. Fear kills your dreams. It kills your hopes. It can kill your health, kills the way that you live. It kills your relationships. Fear is one of the most toxic things a human being can have in their psychology and their spirit. So when you see those examples of fear, I'm a leader. I'm a coach. I'm a guide. I'm a mentor. I do motivational speaking. I've done graduation speaking. I've spoken to 4,000 people on a stage. I always talk about fear because fear is going to be a part of your life forever. But you have to develop tools and networks and communities to combat that fear. So the last thing I want to talk about on the podcast, so I don't keep you all day here, is basically you made the decision, you're running, you're going to try to be one of our representatives. If you could encapsulate who you are or your beliefs or like why people should support you in just a, 30-second, 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute pitch, what would you say to the people?
Yeah, so from the Marine Corps to the business world to now being the president of a global nonprofit, I've led both locally and globally. I've seen the hurts and the struggles of people, not only here in our country, but around the world. I've been able to see where freedoms have been taken in other places, and I see it happening here. And so for me, seeing a government that's out of control, I mean, we have chaos all around us. I care for people that are being fear-mongered. I care for those in our communities that really are being bullied by so-called leaders. And so I'm excited to hopefully restore life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I mean, that's what we're given in this country, and so much of that is being taken because people don't know how good they have it. And we need people in office that are going to fight for the things that are important. Our veterans, and just as we were talking about earlier, not a lot of people chair certain committees unless money's thrown at them in Senate or House of Representatives. And I guess I say all that to say, for me, I think people in life try to figure out what they want to do, but when someone knows who they are, that's somebody that you can trust as a leader. And I know who I am. I'm a young guy who had a dad that deserted him. I became a great husband and a great father. I've had wins, I've had successes, I've had losses, I've had failures, I've had seen my kids be healed, I've seen things turned around. I'm somebody that has been tried and tested, right? And I love what you said earlier, like, why now? Why would you do this? You're back on track in life, spiritually, physically, financially. Why would you want to do this? And this is why I'm doing it, because I've reached a time, as somebody said, I've reached a time in my life where my belly is full. Unfortunately, probably too full right now. But this is not something that I need, but it's something that I know I have to do. I consider it a calling. When I was knocking on doors last week, somebody said, what type of people run for office? I said, me personally, I think it's narcissistic psychopaths or people who have a calling on their life to do it. And she said, well, which one are you? And I said, well, which one do you want me to be? No, I'm just kidding, the politician thing. But I said, I'm the person that feels called to do it. And I really do believe this. I've never put my name in for office before. I've never did anything other than what I know and feel that God's called me to do. And this is why I'm doing it. And this is why I'm going to win. And I'm excited about it.
Well, you got me as a believer, man. And like I said, that you're that 2%. Because I would agree with you that 98% of people that are going in office are probably power-hungry control freaks that want to just have a position of authority, and almost like live above the law. I feel like you're the 2%. So
thank you, buddy.
It's been an absolutely stellar podcast today. It's right at that 3:00 mark. I feel like we crushed the dialogue, and I will actively look to see how I can help your campaign for success.
Thank you. And those that are listening, if they could go for the missions organization, they can go to missioncry.com. And then for our candidacy, you can go to jasonwoolford.com. So
jasonwoolford.com. So I hope that my audience loves this. I hope that they, enjoyed your dialogue today. And maybe we can even bring you in at some point, because the network that this community has, and this building especially, is unbelievable. We kind of have branches that reach everywhere. So it was a pleasure to sit with you today, sir.
Likewise, brother.
We'll
Thank
wrap
you.
this up.
All right. Have a great day.